Good. Hey, how you doing? Sorry about that. Mouse disappeared. I hope you're all well, and welcome to part 2 of the Creative Changemakers Creative Conscience Awards. And part 1 was amazing, right? I mean, I'm not going to set the bar too high. We've got 2 amazing speakers coming up later. In fact, 3 amazing speakers coming up later. But my word, we've seen some great stuff already from the amazing, the kind of like grandfather of sustainability in the UK, and a good friend of mine, Jonathan Porritt. So we've got a lot to build on there. But before we do that, what I want to do is I want to just introduce myself and introduce the running agenda for the rest of the session. So I've got a little bit of an intro, and then we've got Adah Parris. Adah's going to talk about the future. Adah's going to talk about all the amazing work that she does. And then we've got Sir Tim Smit, who is one of the co-founders of the Eden Project. Tim is an amazing orator. Seen one of the best talks ever by Tim, actually. Then we've got Chrissy Levett and Tyler. Then we've got an awards announcement. And then we finish off with Raoul Shah, who's going to talk about thanks plus impact. And actually, I'm a massive fan of physics, and I'm a massive fan of equations, I know. But impact equals mass times velocity squared. So it's a multiplier, and the squared bit, the speed bit, that's the magic, and that's what we've been missing in this debate over the last few years. And then we're going to have a connection via a Q&A breakout session, so you'll be able to join in and have a chat, and we'll pop in and out of that session as we go. So just you don't need to know much about me. I run a little innovation and sustainability consultancy, and my side project is called Reasons to be Cheerful, where we're a little publishing house. That's all you need to know. I'm old, I'm 53. I've been doing this for I've been doing sustainability since 1988. You'd think I'd be good at it by now, right? And I want to start off with a little video that I made about a year ago, actually, looking at the power of and it's a very important video, and I'm going to come back to why afterwards. Oh.
So don't ever underestimate the power of and. What do I mean, the power of and? Look, when you're coming up with new ideas, when you're coming up with new ways of thinking, new products to make, it's really easy to look at something and go, yeah, but, yes, but we've done that before. Yes, but that'll never work. Yes, but nobody will buy it. Yes, but stops things. It brings them down. The key phrase to use is and. Yes, and. Yes, and imagine how that could be. Yes, and that builds on what I'm thinking about. Yes, and that's a better future. The power of and is underestimated.
Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to talk about that, because when I was 6, I was having a drawing competition with a guy called Jason Wilborn. Now, I'm not very good at drawing, but I'm really competitive. And Jason said to me, and I don't change any of the names in my stories, so one day you'll find out I tell this. Jason said to me, I'm a better drawer than you. And he was, but I said, no, you're not. I'm a better drawer than you. I'm competitive. So he said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll both go home tonight and we'll draw a picture of the Lone Ranger. And then the winner, judged by Paul Baum and Stuart Jordan, both of his friends, if I'm honest, the winner will get a bag of Monster Munch. So it was high stakes game. So off I went home that night, and this was before the internet. This was before we had 4 channels on the TV. And I didn't really know what the Lone Ranger looked like, but I drew out, when you're drawing really, really well and you've got your tongue sticking out the side of your mouth, I was doing that. I was drawing really well, trying to draw the Lone Ranger. And my dad came home from work at this point. Now, my dad was a photographer, creative type, wore a cravat at weekends, that kind of chap. And he came in and he looked over my shoulder and he did that classic thing that you should never do with children or, frankly, anybody. He said, what's that supposed to be? What's that supposed to be? Well, that's a closing down question. That's a yes, but question. And you all know when you're trying to grow something, you ask opening up questions. And the question to ask would have been, tell me about your drawing. Now, he didn't ask that, and I don't blame him. We've had the conversation and we're still friends, right? But long story short, Jason Wilborn definitely won. But it's a really interesting moment in my life, because I then didn't draw until I had children. I had children quite young. So at 26, I had kids. And at 25, I had kids. But at 26, they started to draw. And I started to draw with them. And I hadn't drawn for 20 years. So how do you think I drew? Yeah, like a 6-year-old. Because I told myself I wasn't the creative one because I couldn't draw. Creativity is the single most powerful tool we have to change the world. To my mind, the definition of creativity that I penned and I use is creativity is imagining a world that hasn't arrived yet. Now, the world that we live in today, we deserve a better world. We haven't imagined a better world. What we've done is we've just imagined more stuff. We've just imagined a greater quality of life based on owning things. And we use shopping as a form of antidepressant rather than human connection as a form of antidepressant. These two things, sustainability, emotional intelligence, and mental health, they are so intertwined, it's untrue. And we need to work on those. We need to be better at it. Now, what I want to do now is I want to introduce our first speaker, and I'm pretty much bang on time, actually. Now, I know Adah. Adah's a good friend of mine. She is, and I'm going to list them, some of the words. I don't actually know what Adah does day to day, but she's a futurist, she's a cultural strategist, she's an activist, she's an artist. She's a mental health first aid trained. She's chair of the mental health first aid England, and she is an enthusiastic curator of people, patterns, and stories. All of that, forget all of that. Adah Parris. I'm going to stop.
Hello, Mark.
If I can find my mouse, the mouse disappears, doesn't it? When you're in presentation view, I can see it changing at the top. I'm going to let you do that. I'm going to stop the share because I want you to see Adah. Adah is one of my dearest friends, and I meet Adah in a club in London that sounds way seedier than it is. It's a charity members club. And when I see Adah, my face just splits, and I think, yes, it's going to be a good day today. So Adah, my friend, over to you.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Chrissy. Hello, everybody. Mark, it's the same mutual feeling when I see you in the club. The House of St. Barnabas. Well, hello everybody. Yes, as Mark says, my name is Adah Parris, and I've written a little thought piece for you. Rather than talk about my work, Chrissy asked me to write a little inspirational thought piece. So, I have a question for you. What type of ancestor do you want to be? It's not a trick question, but one that I believe should be part of our daily conscious effort to be good humans, co-inhabitants of this planet, this home that we call Earth or Gaia. Now, some may ask, what's creativity got to do with that, especially when we see how budgets and funding have been cut to the creative industries, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. It's heartbreaking to me that those in power don't understand the interconnected relationship between nature, creativity, and our survival, and the potential of any of the legacies that we may leave behind, something that we should talk about before we start thinking about economic growth. We need to reframe our most basic hierarchy of needs. Now, through the research that I'm doing and the work that I do, I discovered that there's a First Nation people's quote that says, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children." And that is why I asked the question, what type of ancestor do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? What impact do you want to have? And what is or are your mediums? Now, to me, art is just one of the many mediums of creativity. And so, as an artist, I'll start there. So the philosopher Alain de Botton says, the underlying mission of art is about changing how we experience the world. Well, the way that we've experienced the world in the last 18 months has and will continue to change. And so if that underlying mission of art if that is the underlying mission of art, then could the pandemic also be considered a collective work of art? As devastating as it has been and continues to be, we need to be more conscious of the who, what, where, when, and how of our existence in this time and place, of how we interact with and relate to other. And I don't just mean humans, because that's egotistical. Of how we share and tell our stories. All change starts with the self, by having an intimate relationship with ourselves. And when I talk about intimacy, I talk about it in terms of into me I see, because we have to start with ourselves. If we don't understand ourselves, how can we expect others to see us, to understand us? How would we recognize ourselves in others? The last 18 months has forced us all to ask ourselves some existential questions. Who am I? How am I? And I mean, when I ask people, how am I ask them, more than just saying I'm fine, how are you really, whilst acknowledging it's okay to not be okay? What is important to me? What do I stand for? It's time to really look in the mirror individually and collectively, because it's through looking into ourselves that consciousness is born, nurtured, and developed. Now, the idea of, I'm a lover of words, and so I went up to look up what the origins of the word consciousness. And the idea has always been changing, but as a philosophical idea, its origins come from the principle of knowing what is right, a sense of fairness or justice or a moral sense. And further back, we keep going further back to the Latin ideas, it's about to know well, to thoroughly know with knowledge. So my questions to you are that with that deeper understanding of self and an understanding of the desire to change how we experience the world, what then does creative consciousness mean to you? And why does it matter now? For too long, we've been spending so much time being nostalgic, trying to rebirth empires and nation states governed by the narratives of the weird, the Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, as if those heroes are the ones who can and should dictate what our conscience should be. We are experiencing one of the biggest states of collective flux in our times. The rules of the games have been broken. Were they ever normal? And if so, why are we talking about creating some kind of new normal? This is the time of the artist, the time of the creative is now. So whatever we call ourselves, we are all storytellers. We have the power to empathetically subvert the status quo. I'm not calling for a revolution, but for individual and collective remembering of what it means to be a good ancestor, because only then can we start to answer the question, what type of ancestor do I, you, and we want to be? Thank you.
I love that, Adah. Thank you very, very much. And there's a really lovely bit in John Kerr's book, Legacy, that talks about that when the New Zealand All Blacks get given their shirts for their first time, the rugby team, they have to imagine what kind of ancestor they're going to be. And there's a whole ceremony and ritual based around that. And this is the rugby team, but actually they're digging in to Maori heritage in a way that is beginning to bring that stuff alive without stealing it. So I love that. Thank you so very, very much, Adah. And we'll have a seed lip and tonic soon in
please,
Soho.
definitely.
Absolutely. And our next speaker is Tim Smit. Now, I met Tim. He probably doesn't remember this actually, but I met Tim at the Do Lectures, of which I'm a founding partner, probably about 10 years ago, Tim. And Tim gave a talk. I'm setting you up now, big time, Tim. He gave a talk that was so good. It took all of the oxygen out of the tent and he held everybody in his hand. You're only allowed 22 minutes at the Do Lectures. I think we were there 45 and not one person said, can you sit down, please? An incredible orator, a visionary. And when we come to creativity, as I started off with, creativity is imagining a world that hasn't arrived yet. Tim has done that. Tim, over to you, my friend.
Well, hello, everybody. After a build-up like that, it's downhill all the way. Thank you. Well, let me tell you about my feet. Under my feet, you will not believe what is happening right now. 4,000 meters below me, a drill is going deeper and deeper and deeper. Last night, at about 1:15 in the morning, it went past 4,000 meters deep, heading towards supposedly the center of the world, but it's actually going down to about 5 kilometers. This drill has already reached temperatures of 155 degrees centigrade. This drill is doing nothing less than demonstrating a future that still remains ours to make. When you speak to politicians, those who have not spent too much time in the company of oil executives or dull people who have read greats at Oxbridge, you will suddenly see them look at you with that eye of disbelief, the puppy dog thing. We cannot possibly believe that Britain could lead anything ever again. Not really. We actually prefer to talk about our past. We prefer to talk about the great things that once were but are now not. And yet beneath my feet at 155 degrees, we're looking at the foundation stone of baseload. Baseload is the holy grail of the energy industry. It is what the oil industry said wasn't possible. How hypocritical is that? That using oil technology, we have gone that deep, we've got that temperature, and what it does with baseload is it provides the power. It provides the power when the sun don't shine and the wind don't blow, and you just turn it and out comes this enormous heat whenever you want it. It means that all those clever, smart people at the IPCC that we all quote, they appear in the Times, you know. They appear even in The Guardian on occasion, and we should be terribly worried. We're now on red alert. When did you feel on red alert? Pray. This red alert has been written by a whole bunch of predominantly middle-aged men with no insight into the future. They say in the IPCC report that it is unlikely that renewable energy could be available all over the world by 2100. Let me tell you, by the year 2030, Great Britain, and by extension just about everywhere else in the world, could be powered by renewables. It could. So when people tell you it can't, ask them their credentials. Say, have you been to the Eden Project? Have you seen what they're doing? Have you seen the mathematics of what they're doing? Have you seen that this is going to liberate a world beyond imagining? And in that world, it means that every area of Britain will be able to provide hot water for a whole range of new industries. Heat will be cheap. Energy coming up with superheated steam going into turbines will also be cheap. At the same time, battery technology will be coming down. The motor car, we will realize the folly of wanting to spend so much money on something simply to have the privacy to pick our noses in private, or to listen over loud to music that has gone past its sell-by date that we really don't want other people to know we like. We will be sharing our motor cars. Why is it that General Motors last year spent over $200 million? I shall repeat that because it's rather worth doing. $200 million on social anthropology. No one, not any of the world's universities, have ever spent $200,000 on social anthropology. And why are they doing it? Because they can see a revolution coming at them at a speed they never dreamt possible. That damned Elon Musk. How dare he be an innovator and good at what he does so that we can't just buy his patents and close him down. He's actually got away. He's like one of those damned horses at Ascot that decides to gallop from the first moment and everybody says, we'll catch him eventually. And then suddenly they realize to their horror, the horse has got away. So the $200 million is how do they persuade you and me and you and you and you and you to share our motor vehicles? Do you know the impact of that? The impact of what is coming is unbelievable. Because did you know that 40% of the ships in the entire planet Earth, container ships, are there to move petroleum products and gases around the world? You are suddenly going to have several billion tons of scrap steel that you won't need to take from the center of the Earth. Another very interesting statistic I find is that did you know that 23%, how boring are people who quote percentage points, but this is rather good. 23% of all the lorry movement miles in the US of A are carrying coal. Now imagine a world where we stop talking like men and talk like people, because it is men predominantly that cause the problems. And that's because we are addicted to a concept. Maybe it began when we were young and we looked at Marvel superhero books and things like that. We seem to have always wanted silver bullets. We want the thing that will cure it all, and we want it now. The world isn't actually like that. But what is very interesting is that within the education system, whisper it to yourself. In private, in corridors of power, people are starting to think, maybe we've got our education system really, really wrong. Maybe what we're doing wrong is that we've divided the world up into ideas that are silos, things that are separate. You see, my hero, and forgive the unwarranted sexism, but my hero, or plural heroes, are all the king's horses and all the king's men. You know why? Because they tried to put Humpty together again. And that's actually our task, ladies and gentlemen. It is to imagine a world in which Humpty Dumpty can be put back together again. And we do it in such a way that suddenly we see the whole picture of what is going on. We live in the most sensational world, and we are blinded to it because of those stupid silos which stop us seeing a big picture. And you know, behind every silo, I hate to say, you'll think I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. I'm actually just an unreconstructed capitalist with a sense of hope and a feeling that a moral compass might actually be all it takes. But when you look at all the silos and scratch around, you know what you see? Wherever you look, you see vested interest. You see interest in making us ill. You see interest in making sure that the food we eat could make us addicted, and it's not good for us. You will see the fake science that actually doesn't pay attention to our relationship to the natural world. So when I go back and I tell you about what's beneath my feet and what's happening with renewable energy, I've only got 7 further minutes, 7 valuable minutes to put ideas in your head which will blow you apart, because they blow me apart. We're living at a time when you say to people, do you think clean meat will catch on? Do you think it will catch on? And all the conservative people who haven't tried it, who haven't traveled, will say, of course not. You might get a burger, but nothing will work. So I ask you, why were last year's sales figures 1.8 billion pounds? 1.8 billion pounds. Why is the most powerful nation on earth, China, about to invest tens of billions of pounds into clean meat. Why would it do that? You know why it's doing that? It's because China built all over its best farmland to create cities, Qingdao, Shanghai, Beijing, the loose plateaus. So where are they now getting the livestock from to feed the emerging middle classes? From the land they actually have to feed people with. So you know what they're going to do? They're going to go clean meat bonkers, and they're going to create a culture of it so strong that it will be seen as tremendously working class to eat those unclean creatures. Now what's going to happen? A really interesting statistic, of course, is Brazil, 80%. Did I mention how boring percentage points are again? So I'll remember it again. 80% of all the soy in Brazil is exported to China. What price rainforests now, do you think? Suddenly, might we be looking at rainforests and replanting rainforests? And it can be done. We have one. Eden has one in Costa Rica. And this place, 34 years ago, was 42 farms, completely derelict, destroyed. Nothing grew. Today, 4 rivers flow 365 days a year. Last year, ocelots and puma returned. This year, for the first time, to our almost ecstatic ululation, jaguar appeared. The people in Paquera, the town next to where we have this 10,000 acres, they believe in God, but they believe in a bountiful God that has given them a second chance. When they used to look up at the mountain used to shimmer from the heat waves, and they would quake at the thought of the droughts, which would last between 5 and 6 months, during which there would be murders as their livestock fought to just get basic needs. Today, they have water. Today, they have regular rain. They have rivers. They have a place where they can create new businesses. And we at Eden, with Hotel Chocolat, are going to be planting thousands of wild cacao bushes to create a crop for people who live there, living within the wild, to make the wild a home for both beast and us. So that is clean meat. But what about fermentation technology? Have you all been watching that? Fermentation technology. Most British people giggle like people in Torremolinos when you mention fermentation. Oh, that's about booze. Fermentation technology is astonishing. From what looks like the naked air, you can suck out proteins and you can compress them and you can build them up into blocks. It was initiated by the Finns, a very brilliant species they are. The old Finns, they know a thing or two. Do you know that you can get dairy proteins now for 30% of the cost of the real thing from a cow? Do you know what that means? It means that when we look at the agriculture of our country, we've got to explore quite how astonishingly, how heavily we're going to have to reimagine that countryside. Forget wilding and rewilding and all those fashionable phrases that go to do with trying to create a landscape of your imagining that the past was in. If you read any books like the book about the horsemen, about the 1300s and how all the forests were then cut down, this is not new. What is new is that we are going to be the first creatures, the first clever creatures that the gauntlet falls to see whether we're clever enough to be worthy of that name, Homo sapiens sapiens. So wise, we named ourselves twice. But just think of it. The reason of the great starvations of the 1300s is going to be the reason why we are going to be destroyed here in the West. We're growing on a lot of inadequate land. So if we do not master fermentation technology and clean meat and all of those things, we will starve. Not only that, we'll starve so bad, we'll probably sell our children as meat. You laugh. You're so comfortable now. It can't possibly happen, can it? What happens? Have you not looked at the world's trouble spots? Have you not seen what happens when humans are not well organized, not well judged, without a moral compass, with no spiritual root? Our duty, and it is a duty right now, is to understand that we are at the dawning of the new green enlightenment. There is nothing else at all of any importance worth considering. But it is an importance so great, it is as big as the dawning of the Age of Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution. The potential is stunning. And when you go to any school in this country and you see those smart young people, you have hope. Because of course, the great question isn't what sort of planet are we going to leave our children? Of course it isn't. That's what dull, middle-aged dullards say. The real question is what sort of children are we going to leave our planet? And that is the question we should be considering. It is at a moment which is astonishingly exciting. Do not let the world's media, don't let them sell us the idea that we're doomed. We are not doomed at all. We are just facing a moment with the biggest question ever, which is, can humans be big enough to understand they are creatures like every other living thing? When you look at the microbes in our bodies, when you look at the mycorrhiza in the soil, and then you look at them under microscopes and you realize they're all the same family as us, you reach this extraordinary spiritual dimension of realizing that we are all creatures. What a moment to be alive. I used to say all that sort of rubbish when I was pretending to be a hippie with my smell of patchouli oil and a rather dodgy jacket in 1969. We are stardust. We are the stuff of the world. How thrilling, how absolutely thrilling to be alive at a time when science is meeting and having a love child with hippie shit, so that we actually now realize that we are one. We are one. And actually, the magic of our moment is, have we middle-aged people on this call and the oldsters like me got the courage to admit we do not have the answers to everything, but what a thrilling ride. And how's about we left our certainties at the back door and opened our minds and forgot that we were left wing or right wing or middle wing, or we believed that we were against this or for that, and start the whole joy of rediscovery of knowledge in the light that we are right at the dawning of the greatest revolution that humankind has ever known. I leave you with that thought. We are living at the most exciting time since humans have walked this planet. Believe me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I told you he was good, right? I said he was good, but I've got good like here. Tim has just come out with really blooming good and popped it up here. So Tim, that was amazing. And I'm with you. This is the most exciting time to be alive. And you're right. If we listen to the populist narrative, it's the scariest time to be alive. It isn't. It's thrilling. It's exciting, and I'm totally up for this. Thank you. Any questions for Tim? You'll have an opportunity at the end to pop them into the questions and answers box, and we'll harvest those in a minute. I'm going to hand back over now to Chrissy, who's going to do a little piece for us, and then I'll pick it back up after. We'll come back and we'll see the award winners. Chrissy, over to you.
Hello everyone. Gosh, how do you follow that? Amazing, Tim. Thank you so much. Massive hugs and kisses for joining us here tonight. Wow. So yeah, I have to admit that I myself have, and Barlow can vouch for this, I've woken from dystopian dreams because I've been so fearful about the future. And I think if we're all really honest, who here has felt that fear, anxiety? Mark's putting his hands up in the background. Put yes in the chat if you've felt that. And to hear what Tim is saying, it just is amazing. But if you felt that, I want to tell you a situation, and I spoke about this last year, but I'm going to tell it again because it was really poignant. So it was pre-COVID, so maybe it was about 2 years ago, I learned that financial institutions across the world had laundered $3 trillion worth of dark money. Now, when I say dark money, that's money that has been gained by child sex trafficking, modern slavery, all sorts of really, really dark processes. And these financial institutions were not away from us. These were organizations that are on our high street. And at the time, I was angry. I didn't know what to do about it, but I also went down to see my mother. Now, my mother is now 91. At the time, she was 90. And she lives in Woking. She lives in this pretty ghastly sort of 60s flat. It's on the ground floor. I go in, my eyes bleed because I'm a designer, and there's flock and pattern everywhere. And I go in to visit my mother. I go on the train, I get there, and I walk in, and I sit down. And as mothers often do, she started. From a place of love, I have to say, she started. Oh, look at you. You look so tired. Look at the bags under your eyes. Your hair's a mess. Now, normally, I would be able to take that criticism from a place of love and rebuff it. But on this particular occasion, I couldn't. I was knackered. I had been working too hard. And I'm ashamed to say that I broke down. I didn't want to break down. I mean, my mother's 90. I could have killed her off at this stage. So anyway, I'm crying at my mom and I'm saying, I'm so sorry, mom, but we cannot stop doing the work we do. She's got a whole tribe. I'm the youngest of 6. She's got a whole tribe. I mean, she's an environmental terrorist with all the children she's had. And she's got a whole tribe of grandchildren. I said, Mom, we can't stop. Think about your grandchildren. Now, what I have to tell you is that my mother banks with a bank that I'm not going to mention because I'll probably get sued, but a bank that has got, I know we've got some South Africans on the call tonight. We've got people coming from all over the world, but a bank that wouldn't pull out of South Africa during the apartheid regime, a bank which has a terrible reputation for all sorts of things. And my mother has banked with this bank for many, many years. And I've had this conversation with her to move her bank for decades. And she said, look, Chrissy, and she's half blind and half deaf. And she looked up at me with these sort of cloudy eyes and she said, look, I'm 90 years old. What can I do? And I said, please, Mum, please just change your bank. Now, we left the conversation because she doesn't like me going on about it. She always tells me, don't get too political. Anyway, I left the conversation. I got back on the train. I came back to London. And a week later, I got an email from one of my brothers who deals with my mother's affairs. He said not only had she changed her bank, but she had also changed all her energy supplies to completely renewable. And I want to tell you this story because in those moments where you feel powerless, every single little choice we make makes a difference. And collectively, we can absolutely change the world. So I'm going to share the screen again with you because I want to share a little film that we've created, which is a call to action to all us creatives. And by creatives, that's every single human on the planet, because we're all creative thinkers. I'm just going to check, actually, let's stop sharing a second that I've put the right, there's a little thing on here that I sometimes get wrong. If I don't click it, we get gray panels all over our webinar. So excuse me for a second while I do that. I'm going to share this film as a call to action.
The choice. What will you do with your creativity? Will you create more hate, waste, destruction, corruption, sadness, madness, pain, shame, isolation, and exploitation? Or will you create more happiness, hopefulness, empathy, stability, honesty, equality, regeneration, preservation, opportunity, and unity? Let's create change. Not just more of the same. Creative conscience. If you are a creative and want to help make the world a better place, join our movement at creative-conscience.org.uk.
So I wanted to share that film with you as a call to action. And I'm so grateful for everyone in this room, for everyone in this community that has built this thing, because it has been built.
from a place of hope and love and action. So if we get that we all have a choice in every single thing we choose, we also get that we can take action, right, via that choice. And we as an organization are about positive impact. And it probably isn't the right place to say this, but we aren't that interested in the awards, as it were. We use them as a funnel to empower and engage the next generation of creative thinkers, right? So the real thing that matters to us as an organization is creating impact. Obviously, it's going to impact people who engage with us and get awards. But when we get projects sent to us, we, as much as we can, work with people's ideas to make things happen, right? And so I'd love to share with you 2 projects and a project that we've done as a collective around creative impact. And the first one is around environmental impact. I'm going to run this film. It was sent to us last year by Jonathan, a mature student, a student at the time, who created this project, which changed the course of politics in Denmark.
Time is running out on climate change. Yet for the 2019 election in Denmark, climate change was not seen as the primary political issue. The Green Party, the alternative, wanted to change that by creating the ice poster. Made entirely out of ice, it became not only the world's most sustainable election poster, but also the most impactful.
Den altså virkelig kreativ. Det her, det et stykke is.
Og så kunne den ellers hænge der og smelte og dryppe.
Alternativet kalder valget for et klimavalg.
The message of the ice poster was shared by politicians and climate activists from all over the world. As the poster melted away, the urgency to act grew. And drop by drop, it helped change the focus of the election, moving climate change from an issue to the issue.
Jeg vil gerne fra talerstolen erkende, at når Folketinget i dag har rykket sig så langt på klimadagsordenen, så spiller Alternativet også en rolle i det. At valget i juni måned blev et klimavalg.
A brilliant example of creative thinking that just changed the course of the conversation. This next project, and actually Tyler, TJ, who did this, couldn't join us tonight, but we've got a little bit of a clip. We interviewed him and he talked to some of the people in this sort of pre-event. He did this project on social impact. And I just want to stress that the environment and social impact are intertwined. We cannot separate them. And if you get into Jonathan Porritt's book, you'll understand a lot more about that. But this was his concept. And then I'll tell you, and well, he'll tell you what's happening to this project since winning an award.
When a police officer turns on his body camera, there's a 30-second delay before the audio turns on as well. This gap in audio creates a gap in accountability, which ultimately creates a gap in trust between youth and law enforcement. This is especially shocking since in the last 5 years, audio assistants have become such an integral part of our lives.
Alexa, what's the date?
So what if we could use speech to amplify peace between youth and law enforcement? The United Nations introduces Miranda, the virtual assistant that uses speech when you can't. Virtual assistance apps have wake words.
Hey Siri.
Alexa. Hey Google.
Miranda has woke words.
License registration.
You have the right to remain silent.
Yes. When heard, Miranda instantly begins recording, sending the audio to a secure online cloud in real time, putting accountability on both sides of urban interactions. By empowering our youth through security and access to justice, we're easing the tension, which in turn leads to law enforcement feeling safer as well. But even when safety isn't being compromised, peace still is. And this comes from a lack of legal literacy when it comes to our rights. so Miranda is always there when you need advice. Legal literacy is the first step in our journey towards peace in our cities. So let's stop remaining silent and make sure that voices are only used to increase safety, build trust, and amplify peace. Miranda, knowing our rights, accountability for our wrongs.
So that was TJ's concept. And here's him talking about, because the work was on our platform, what happened next. It's a bit of a rubbish recording, I'm afraid. But anyway, here you go.
The agencies, they get to see that, and that puts you on a platform for them to see. And what's really amazing about this specific project here is that an agency actually reached out to us, and now this project, which started as a speculation idea, is now being created as a real thing, which is super exciting news. So we're just really excited to really get that out. We're working on all of the tweaks and all the schematics to really learn how this can come out in the proper way. But just to know that we're getting that type of attention now is amazing. And to know that it came because of like Creative Conscience is just great news. And that's why I'm so grateful to organizations such as this.
Oh, thank you, Tyler. And I just want to mention this one project that we did as a collective. And I have to do a massive shout out to one of our trustees, Nicole Yershin, and also Keith Nielsen from Voodoo. But during the pandemic, when we were being fed all this fear-driven nonsense through mainstream media, we launched collectively a campaign that fed live data sets from John Hopkins that they'd managed to hack into to give a different story, a story of kind of hope. This went to more than 15 countries. It reached millions of people. It was on 10 sites in Times Square alone. And it didn't cost a penny. There was no media budget. There was nothing. So that's how powerful we as collective creative thinkers can make a difference in the world. If you guys want to know a bit more, I'm going to do a quick ad. We are doing a talk at the V&A here in London as part of the London Design Festival on Sunday the 19th, the next Sunday at 1:30. Jess will put the link in the chat. We would love that you could come and support us and learn more about all this mischief that we make in the world. So how do you create positive impact? Well, it all starts with imagination. And I want to read this quote from Einstein himself. I hope you're going to love this. I love quotes. They're like mini essays for those of us who struggle to read, which is me. So Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. And that, as creative beings, is where it all starts. Let's imagine a fairer, healthier, more just, sustainable, and regenerative world. And if we do, we can really make things happen. So I'm going to pass you back. Thank you so much for listening and being here and supporting us. I'm going to pass you back to Mark, because now we are going to announce all these amazing winners. So I'll see you in a minute. Bye.
Thank you, Chrissy. What incredible enthusiasm. So next up, it's the winners. I'm going to just get out of the way and put it on.
I should probably say, so I've jumped back in, that we have discipline awards and also themes. So if you haven't seen your name yet, don't worry, we've got a whole lot more to show you.
amazing. I mean, truly amazing. You know, a few years ago, I set up an incubator, and it was a kind of like ideas accelerator and incubator, and we put a call out for sort of social purpose projects, and we didn't really get any good ones, if I'm honest. And then I went to speak at the inauguration of South Bank University's design school graduation, and I'm walking around the design show, and it suddenly dawned on me that all of the good ideas were here. Not all the good ideas in the world, but certainly all the good ideas that I've seen over the last month. So it's super important to go back to basic creativity, to go back to students, no matter whether you're young students or old students, it doesn't matter. What happens when you become a student or a learner in some way is that you remove the shackles and you allow yourself to think more freely. That was amazing. Well done, everybody. I'm super, super, super impressed. Now, I'm going to hand over to Raoul Shah. Raoul is founder of Exposure. Exposure are an agency that keep brands relevant, keep brands alive. And he's also the chair of Creative Conscience and an utterly lovely man. So, Raoul, over to you. Shall I stop this sharing and then you can...
Please take that.
I would take that photo. Let me just try my
very fantastic picture away, and let's convert to me in real life.
There you are.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks to all of you. I mean, what an incredible snapshot of just the best ideas that come from, you know, sometimes I'm thinking a lot of you are probably coming through an education system and looking at kind of where to go next, but this work is not, you don't need any more confirmation than the work you've just seen there to know that this is your calling. This is absolutely incredible. And, you know, when Mark talked earlier about physics, which was my worst subject at school, when I grew up doing something called O-levels, I do remember the multiplier effect. And if everyone can just share this work with one or two more people, we're already going to make a bigger difference. But just, you know, to sort of round off where we've come from today, this evening, I want to talk a little bit about impact, I guess, very simply, what it is we're here to do, what Creative Conscience is designed to try and kind of really shift in terms of change. And since Chrissy launched this organization in 2012, so next year we will be 10, you know, I guess there was a point where we can reflect and go, she was ahead of her time. But right now, every organization, every individual talks about and recognizes the need to make a change, to make an impact and make a difference. But our job at the charity is to try and make sure that we get more people to do more now. I think the key thing right now, as has been said by many of the previous speakers, is it is really the time to act and do something, whatever that is, however big or small. And, you know, since the foundation of Creative Conscience, almost, as I said, 10 years ago, you know, we've seen thousands of projects, and I mean over 5,000 projects come to life through the amazing work of, you know, all of our community around the world. And we've delivered hundreds of talks and workshops around the world. The ambition now is just to amplify and multiply that. We want to do a lot more of that. The thing that is most exciting about the diversity of what goes on and what we see here is that since the beginning, you know, we have had, I think there's over 100 nationalities that are represented across the totality of the work that we see. And that is in itself a remarkable statistic, just because so many people in so many places and from so many different backgrounds care. And I think together that can have a huge impact in any part of society, any community that you're a part of, or wherever you've come from and where you may go next. And, you know, I guess taking ideas from the drawing board into reality is definitely a key part of what we're here to do. And I think when I see the work that's just been presented and awarded, you know, if there's one thing I would love to sort of, you know, see us do more of and make it my job to do, is to get more businesses and more individuals to support all of those ideas to make them happen and make them come to life. As Chrissy said, you know, we want to reward good behavior with the awards, but really what she was saying is the awards are one part. It's really about the impact. And, you know, we want to be a catalyst here today for your journey to act and use your creativity, your ideas, your passion, your energy to make an impact. I mean, you've already all made a difference. And the descriptor I think Chrissy used earlier about positive creative activist, you are now, you can put that on your business card. If somebody says, what do you do? That is what you are here demonstrating in real time for all of us. And Tyler said a brilliant thing in a talk that we saw earlier, which was, you have to keep going, don't stop. And you need to remind each other about the value of what your ideas can do. And I think the other part to the work that we see and the individuals that we've had the privilege to meet is the transformation that this work being showcased and recognized has on individuals. And we've seen that with so many people whose work has been taken into the sort of public eye, into the commercial world, and onto a bigger platform like the work we saw in America, like we saw the election campaign around climate change issues. And I think for us, we really want to make sure that we can impact your life and transform the experience that you go through into the kind of future. And I think that's something that is a very big part of the mission, built out of the values of creative conscience. We're going to be relentless in our support for your ideas and for everyone's ideas, and we will keep applauding outstanding thinking. But we don't want to just have ideas and creativity that looks good. We want to do good. But without you, we only exist as a platform. So the bigger our platform becomes, will be a reflection of and a function of how big our community is. And that means, everything you do helps us build our footprint and our ability to make a difference in more places amongst more people. And, that advance, I guess, is where, as Tim said, we can all make an impact within society and our planet. And it's, the power of the and as well. It's the multiplier effect, as Mark said earlier. It's a fantastic bit of film that he shared with us, which really just showed what use of just language can do to bring people on a journey and bring people along with your own kind of interests and passions. And I guess, one of the things that is so important is, as Jonathan said, you don't deserve hope unless you act on it. And I think what we want to make sure of is that the energy that's in the room today is something that is taken beyond just this moment in time. We've got to remember and remind each other. I find the chat room here so brilliant because so much encouragement comes in every direction towards each of us and each of you. And I think, the fact that your work has been recognized here today and the fact that you've all been commended and awarded with something demonstrates the fact that, that point around hope and, deserving hope unless you act is a perfect example of you actually being in the category of people who have deserved hope rather than thinking about it. You've done something quite incredible today, and throughout the work and time you spent developing the things that you shared with us. So you are all already role models and leaders and change makers. And I think there's something kind of interesting about education. I've got kids who are, one is about to start university, one is starting A-levels, and they often sort of think about kind of the future and careers. And I say, your career and your ability to make a change is now. It's not about waiting for someone to give you a job and give you a title. And I think, you are all outstanding, as I said, role models for your colleagues, your peers, and everyone around you. And I think Chrissy's story about her relationship with her mother is a wonderful illustration of how this journey never stops. And it doesn't stop at any age amongst anybody. We can all change people's behavior. So, firstly, I want to say, for those who are new to Creative Conscience, it's wonderful to welcome you into part of a global network of, people who have compassion, people who have a real desire to kind of have a better tomorrow by acting now. And, our network, when we talk about it, and the platform, Barlow talked about sort of sharing and using Twitter and Instagram and all our social feeds as a way of connecting, but we would love to have more of you connect with each other, with us, and hopefully we can benefit from this kind of community getting bigger. And as Tyler said, he put it so eloquently, it's not just about your neighbor, we're all linked as a family, as a global family, because together we can make a huge, huge difference. So I just want to say thank you all for your enthusiasm, but particularly for your belief and your ideas, because it's been so inspiring, and certainly has been a huge sort of propelled me to write a ton of notes about things that we're going to do differently and better going forward. I also want to just round off by saying thank you, because this event and Creative Conscience as an entity and our global community would not be kind of here today without the work of so many people. But firstly, the speakers, I mean, we had 2 talks in the earlier session with the winners from Jonathan Porritt and Tyler, which were wonderful. Adah and Tim, I mean, both of you, the talks have been recorded. So, you know, if there's one thing to listen to on repeat, I think both your talks are going to be doing that, playing that on repeat for me for a while. Mark, thanks for hosting, as always, brilliant. And also not just holding the mic, but inspiring us all the way through. There's plenty more. We'd love to hear from you in the future. Everyone who's entered the awards, you're all winners. As I said, you are incredible role models. You're outstanding individuals, and thank you so much for taking part. I think these awards for me, having seen and been to a number of awards in the creative industries for many years, these stand out a mile. And again, Mark mentioned the fact that he tried something early, many years ago, which didn't really work. It's because all the actions here, this is where the real future of making change exists. And I'm glad and incredibly proud to be a part of that journey with all of you. We have a global network of ambassadors and judges who've worked, again, tirelessly to go through so much work. As I said, we have thousands of entries. So thank you to all of you if you're listening. The educators, colleges and academic institutions with whom we partner, where we give talks and do workshops. Thank you again for your support. Barlow, LNC, he talked to you all about his company as a B Corp. If you don't know what a B Corp is, you should definitely have a look at it, because it's a fantastic way to consider how you might want to construct a business of your own in the future. Thank you to all of our global community. I know we've had people checking in and listening in from all over the world, from Italy, from New York, from all, South Africa, all parts of the UK. And thanks again to all our trustees and our advisory board who give so much generous time, advice, support, and kind of open up their black books when needed. So your generosity of spirit, your time and your energy makes a huge difference. So that's it from me. Thank you to all of you. I would love to see a real life version of this very soon. If we can, getting everyone together somewhere in the near future will be a key part of maybe a follow-up to this for those who can make it. But thanks again, and good night. Mark, back to you.
Thank you, Raoul. Thank you very, very much. And look, I started off by talking about the power of creativity, about creativity being a future, imagining a future that hasn't arrived yet. And if we go back through what we've heard, the optimism has been amazing. This is the most exciting time to be alive. And I love Tim Smit's definition of himself as an unreconstructed capitalist with a moral compass and a spiritual root. And we need that so much right now. So imagine if we put all the firepower that Exposure have and all of these amazing agencies have into communicating the challenge and the solutions that are already at our fingertips. Imagine what that agency would look like. Now that excites me. I'm going to go and do that, actually. That's a really great idea, Shayler. Now, I just want to finish with one thing. We're all sat in our rooms all around the world, all looking in on this screen and thinking, amazing, but there's just me. There isn't. And if you're interested in the power of a network, have a look at the work of an artist called Chris Jordan. Chris Jordan is an environmental artist, and he's got this amazing piece of work. He was really interested in these environmental projects all over the US, just the US. So we just started to write them down, the names of the projects, and then he began to shape them because he's an artist. And before you knew it, he's got this kind of like crisscross, this mesh of all of these amazing projects, like the Sierra Club, like a whole load of kind of California, New York-based environmental projects, and not even just the East and West Coast. There is a life in the middle. And before he knew it, he had a mosaic on the wall that was 3 stories high. Because we think we're alone, we're not. We just don't know that each other exists. We live in the most hyper-connected, incredible world, and yet we forget to look outside of our own little blinkers. So my plea to you is to stay in touch, to make contact with people doing great stuff. Jonathan Porritt would genuinely respond to your email. Tim Smit would genuinely respond to your email. And I know Adah would because she's my mate. And I know Raoul would because I know exposure really well. Reach out to people. They need you as much as you need them. Now, I'm going to bring the formal presentation to a close, but it doesn't end here. We've got a breakout room, which you should have been notified about in the chat or in the Q&A. I can't remember which. If you pop into there, there's going to be 15 minutes of chat till about 8 o'clock. We'll pop in and we'll carry on proceedings in there. Thank you, because I feel I feel I can sleep a little bit better knowing that you guys are in the world and doing this great work, along with all of the other amazing projects like Eden, all of the great stuff that's going on out there. You're very worthy bedfellows. Thank you very much. And a massive thank you to Chrissy and the organisers and Raoul.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. I'm going to end now.